At the University of Minnesota, there is a team of undergraduate students who dedicate their free time to designing and building prototype solar vehicles. Comprised of over 100 full-time students from engineering and business backgrounds, they spend 2 years designing and building a car from scratch. Today, we take a look at the University of Minnesota Solar Vehicle Project's journey to the 2019 Bridgestone World Solar Challenge. Every 2 years, 20 students from the team travel to Australia to race their car against other universities from around the world. The World Solar Challenge is a 3,000-kilometer road race across Australia from Darwin in the north to Adelaide in the south. Universities from around the world design and build solar cars to compete in the notoriously difficult 6-day-long trip through the Outback. Before we take a look at this year's race, we need to look back to 3 decades ago, when in 1990 a group of U of M Twin Cities engineering students inspired by the first US solar car race, the 1990 GM Sun Race, founded the Aurora Race Team, with the goal of competing in the 1993 Sun Race. By summer of 1993, the team was ready with their first ever solar electric car, and they finished 21st at the finish line in Apple Valley, Minnesota. Almost 20 years later, in 2012, the team had competed in competitions in Australia, Asia, and of course, North America, and built a legacy of placing first or second in over half of the events they'd attended. 2012 also marked the last year that the team built a single-occupant Challenger-class solar car. The next year, in 2013, the team entered the World Solar Challenge in the newly formed cruiser class with Daedalus, a multi-occupant, practicality-oriented solar vehicle. Following Daedalus's success, the team attended WSC in 2015 with EOS and in 2017 with EOS 2. Which brings us to our current race crew of 18 students who spent 6 weeks in Australia preparing for and racing their car across the continent.
Hi, my name is Ricky Sipola.
Chris Mikulski.
I'm Ashley Law.
My name is Faris El-Humiani. I was the controls lead, so managing the electrical side of the team.
I'm a mechanical engineer on the team. I've been doing it for 2 years.
I am the current strategy manager. I've been on the team for 2.5 years.
And I am the former director of operations of the Solar Vehicle Project, and I was also the logistics manager for the 2019 Bridgestone World Solar Challenge.
My role in the race was a general electrical member, working on things like our battery protection system.
I've done strategy and recruiting.
I was a mechanical engineer and the chef.
EOS 2 is the commuter car of the future, a 2-seater car meant to drive the 3,000 kilometers through the Outback Desert.
It's a solar-powered electric vehicle that's designed and built by students.
It comes equipped with a solar array that brings in energy from the sun, and the car runs on an electric motor.
It has elements in aerodynamics, mechanical systems, electrical systems, as well as software.
Built in 2017 for that year's World Solar Challenge. We do emphasize on building as much as we can and giving students the experience in building the entire solar car. The beginning process is building the molds to create the shape of the car. So what we do is we buy tooling foam and then we glue them together with resin, and then we bring them to Cirrus Aircraft where we mill out the shape of the car and bring these molds and this material to the Delta composite shop here in the Twin Cities, where we can lay up carbon fiber and fiberglass, put all of this into an autoclave, and make the exterior of a solar car.
Designing and revising different printed circuit boards and programming the microcontrollers ourselves.
The battery protection system that measures our voltages and temperatures for each battery module.
Dashboard, rear view, center console, lights control.
The steering wheel.
We even hand wind the copper wires into the magnetic windings of the motors themselves.
The lights we use for the car.
We encapsulate our solar cells by ourselves at 3M headquarters here in the Twin Cities.
So many contributing members helped make EOS 2 a great car.
In the 2017 World Solar Challenge, EOS 2 got 5th place.
After 2017, in 2018, in July, we went to FSGP and ASE, which are both American races.
FSGP was mainly a track race focused on a track endurance race for our car.
We did really well. We placed first among the cruisers.
In the road race, which was held over about 9 days from Nebraska to Oregon following approximately the Oregon Trail,
We were leading for a lot of it until we had motor trouble and ended up dropping for tying in second.
For 2019, we'd expected to see a new solar car for UMNS VP, but things went a little differently this year.
Typically, we build a car every 2 years, and each car races in the World Solar Challenge and the American Solar Challenge. For the 2019 World Solar Challenge, we actually brought EOS 2 for the second time. The reason for this was because this next car we're building, Freya 1, is going to be the biggest solar car our team has ever made. And we did not want to skip out of any of the quality of the build of this car. So we wanted to give ourselves extra time for the build of Freya 1.
Preparing EOS 2 for the 2019 World Solar Challenge, we made a number of modifications.
The race expected a much higher target speed for the duration of the race, and due to aerodynamic losses, a high speed really drains your battery a lot faster. So the previous battery was not large enough for our car to make it.
Adding a larger battery in the back, rewrapping the vinyl on the car, redoing the interior, redoing some internal systems.
Getting the car ready isn't the only challenge the team faces when going on a race. Logistics manager Ricky has a big job getting everything organized for the team's 6-week stay in Australia.
The logistics of the World Solar Challenge are a little overwhelming. The biggest things we have to deal with are shipping the car to a foreign land, Australia, which is thousands and thousands of miles away from here in Minnesota, and also sending about 18 students from Minnesota to Australia, finding rental cars for everybody, lodging and food for everybody, and also, of course, just communicating with the officials at the World Solar Challenge, paying our entry fees and making sure everything goes smoothly.
When all of us flew into Adelaide, we were all in an Airbnb, so all in different rooms and crashing in the same house. And we would go to National Storage, where we had a storage space where we worked on EOS 2 with all of our tools and equipment.
Spend a whole bunch of time taking the car from the state it was when it was in the crate to the state it needs to be in order to be driving on the Stewart Highway.
Working on the battery protection system, making sure our new battery system for the rear pack was up to date.
The solar car isn't the only thing that the team has to get ready for driving on the Stewart Highway. Outfitting their 5 support vehicles is a big job in itself, from modifying a trailer for the solar car, building shelving in a cargo van, installing radios, lights, signage, and even installing a roof-mounted weather station. Everything has to be installed and tested before the team can leave for test driving.
After about 2 weeks in Adelaide, we started driving north toward Darwin and using that time in the Outback to really try to test out the car and practice for the race itself. So things like determining how fast the car was going to go during the day, finding good campsites, and making sure that we were acquainting ourselves with how the Outback was actually going to feel and going to look.
The drive from Adelaide to Darwin was our crew's first time actually driving as a caravan, actually being able to camp outside at the end of the day, working on our car, kind of emulated the race before the race ever started.
So there was a lot of time where we were just, on the side of the road in the desert heat as people were, poking inside the car trying to figure out what was wrong.
We found some calibration type issues with the car that we were fortunately able to fix before we got to Darwin.
Troubleshoot, find those problems inside the solar car, fix them on the spot.
We had road testing with the various drivers, starting with the most experienced, so we were 100% sure everything was okay. And then we cycled through the other drivers, and we had driving that was more or less exactly what you'd expect on race.
It's really fun for me to see EOS2 driving with other cars on the road.
A lot of time of trying to get the drivers kind of comfortable with driving the car in that sort of environment, and we learn better how to manage ourselves as a caravan. So after about a week of driving north to Darwin through the Outback and doing all of this test driving, we arrived and we were able to register at the Hidden Valley Racetrack with the race officials, get a garage space, and keep working on the car.
Much like in Adelaide, we spent most of our time working on the solar car, getting it prepared.
Testing on Gunpoint Road, where we brought the solar car out to just drive it back and forth and get some testing time on our new battery.
It was a lot more humid, but the fun part about Darwin is seeing all the other solar car teams. So getting some team-and-team interactions, made a lot of friends during that time. So scrutineering is the process used for safety checks and making sure your car is ready for the race. That's where they'll catch you on regulations if you don't meet certain criteria.
We bring the solar car to the convention center where they check the electrical systems. We put a tracker box in our car and make sure the car's the right size.
Is your ballast box good? Do you weigh the correct amount? Can you egress? How much does everyone weigh? Is the mechanical system the same as the documentation you sent in? All of those things.
We were just about all perfect. There was some minor issues. We had a little bit of too much slop in the steering wheel and some logos on our caravan vehicles we needed to make a little bit bigger. Easy fixes. We brought it there the second time and we got all greens. The second part of scrutineering was dynamic scrutineering, where we drove the car around the track in Hidden Valley. We did a hot lap, which is where we try to drive as fast as we can, which gets our starting position for the World Solar Challenge itself. And we also do some other dynamic tests like braking and the slalom test.
After passing static and dynamic scrutineering, the team picks up their license plates, packs up their garage space, and gets to bed early. Over the next 6 days, they will travel over 3,000 kilometers back to Adelaide. For every sunrise and sunset, they'll point EOS2's solar array at the sun to capture as much energy as possible. From 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., they'll be on the road, and the only planned stops are 30-minute scheduled control stops along the race route. This year, they have implemented 2 charging stations along the race route where cruiser cars can charge their batteries off the grid. The first stop is 1,000 kilometers into the race at Tennant Creek, and the second is another 1,200 kilometers down the Stewart in Cooper PD. No matter what happens, the journey is going to be a challenge.
We all got up really early to get ourselves and all of our equipment to the start line and prepare ourselves for the start of the race.
A lot of anxiety going into the race because this is the event we've been working a year for. You know, we all had dreams of going to Australia, racing our solar car, and I think the first day, being able to take off with our car, not having, a sudden breakdown and not being able to race, really took a lot of the strain off my mind.
Over the course of the day, we had some troubles with some hills initially and being stuck behind slower challenger teams that were going slower than we were intending to. So we had some trouble passing some of these slower teams, and that led to faster speeds later in the race.
So our first night of camping during the race, we didn't have a nice campground. We kind of just stopped whenever we could when we reached the end of our time window. And luckily we found a very decent spot. We were next to 2 other solar car teams. So being able to see other solar car teams doing the exact same thing we were doing was kind of a fun experience for me. Waking up early in the morning to catch that sun really represented the race for me and kind of defines it as a solar car race versus just an electric car race. Day 2 felt as close to a TV show that I could imagine possible in real life because we barely hit our required target window by about 15 or 20 minutes. And if we didn't meet that, we would not be competitive against other teams that did make it within the time window. And so just by making it in the final 20 minutes, that was enough for us to advance a rank among the other cruiser class cars. And we suffered some breakdowns along the way, some mechanical and some temperature problems, which really hurt our chances because we had to speed up to make up that loss. And the energy drain on our battery would have long-term effects. So for stage 2 of the race, it's basically where all the previous time losses and having to make up for it by increasing our target speed, that's where it really hit us.
Sometime into the second day, strategy team came to the conclusion that we really weren't going to get to Cooper PD within the given time frame, so we ended up pulling over and trailering the car the rest of the way. For stage 3 of the race, we knew that we were no longer in the running for top 3. So that took a lot of pressure off the team, but we still wanted to make sure that we were finishing the rest of the race to the best of our abilities. We were able to finish the entire race, and then we got to go through the formality of going through the ceremonial finish line, which was really cool.
Getting into Adelaide, back where the temperature's nice, there's no bugs, and we are finishing this road race. It was really relieving and exciting.
So being able to see EOS2 crossing the finish line kind of felt like a sense of completeness for me.
It really is something that you're never going to forget.